Good afternoon. I'd like to call this special meeting of March 30th, 2015 to order. Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Francisco. Hart.
Here.
Hotchkiss. Here. Murillo.
Here.
Rouse. Here. White. Mayor Schneider.
Here. Thank you. I believe Councilmember Francisco is on his way, so he's en route. Do we have any public comment, speaker slips for anything not on today's agenda?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay, so I'll close that. And we're here for setting the geographic boundaries for district elections. I'm just going to turn it right over to Mr. Johnson. Thank you very much, or Mr. Kalan, whoever wants to take it over.
Let me just give a brief introduction. You have at your places 11 by 17 versions of the maps that are in your packet. I'd rely on these. These are absolutely correct. We made some changes Friday night to conform to some discussions we'd had with the plaintiffs. The other comment I wanted to make is I received word today from Ms. Welcome, who's an attorney in Mr. Capello's firm, that all three of these plans are acceptable to the plaintiffs.
Good, thank you. Mr. Johnson. And I'm sorry, do we want to mention anything about interpretation?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a bilingual announcement. This hearing will be simultaneously interpreted into Spanish. Downstairs, we have two interpreters that are doing the full meeting through channel 18. So if you are at home, you can put the sub channel and you can hear it in Spanish. And here you have 4 earphones that if you wish to listen to the whole hearing in Spanish, they're connected, so you will be hearing the simultaneous interpretation that is going out to channel 18. If you decide to come and speak Spanish when you come up front, I'll be sitting here and I can help you. Esta audiencia se está llevando a cabo totalmente interpretada en español. Abajo tenemos 2 intérpretes que están interpretando para el canal 18 y entonces aquí con estos audífonos los pueden escuchar totalmente la transmisión en español. Si desean venir y hacerlo en español aquí frente al podio, yo voy a ser su intérprete porque no se quieren expresar. Thank you. Gracias.
Thank you. This is reminding me of one of these childhood tests where you look at 3 things and try to figure out 10 things that are different in each of the ones. You know, you circle the, yeah, anyway. Where's Waldo? Yeah, no, not where's Waldo. Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson.
It's a pleasure to be with you again. And it is somewhat of a good sign that the council made a lot of progress at the last meeting in narrowing down the choices that now we're down to just some key decisions here. Let me just briefly go through the plans. All 3 are based heavily on draft plan 3. So we can narrow down to that as a base, and we're looking at different options for moving things around within the context of draft plan 3. So in plan 3A, we have the basics of Plan 3 with District 5 in the west, going up in the hills in the west, District 6 essentially coming down the west side of State Street all the way from Upper State to Brinkerhoff. Then we have 4, which is kind of the northeastern hills coming down into Lower Riviera, Laguna, the high school, and all the way to State Street. And then District 1 on the east side, District 3 primarily on the west side, and then District 2 largely on the Mesa and going over to the Bel Air area. Let me put the lines on the screen here showing the differences. So the dashed lines now on the screen are the original draft 3. And so this just highlights the changes. So the first change in Plan A, and this is actually in A and B, is instead of stopping here at Coda and kind of jogging along, we go all the way out to what is the city's general plan border for the east side, coming out to the Soledad and a little bit more of De La Guerra Street. This was mentioned in a number of the letters. They wanted this area included. The other change is over in between Salinas and Eucalyptus Hill. This blue area here is the school that was talked about at length at the last meeting, the Cleveland School. So we're keeping the Cleveland School, and there's a few homes around it, largely on the west side of it, that stay in District 1, and then Overlook Lane, the 2 loops up here, and Eucalyptus Hill Circle, we're now taking out and putting into District 4. This essentially is the parcel border of the school. We actually overlaid the parcel lines.
Mr. Johnson, what appeared to be over the weekend to me was that one of the maps did not include Cleveland School in the east side, but I understand all 3 of the maps we're looking at today has Cleveland in the east side.
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, both the Soledad and the Cleveland School change I showed you are in both A and B. And map C, as you'll see, keeps the Cleveland School and more. It doesn't do that split I just showed you. The other change is the Clark Estate over here is kept in District 4 in all 3 plans. And then there's the Brinkerhoff change. This is, we talked about this a lot at the last meeting. In plans A and B, it's Brinkerhoff, but not the original option I showed you before. In this case, we're keeping one more city block in District 3. So we're getting Brinkerhoff Avenue, and then from De La Vina to State, but only coming down to Haley in both A and B. And back up. They're also over here on the western side of District 3. There's the Harding School is kept together. It's a 0 population change. And then there are 2 census blocks between Kowalski and Robbins that are moved to offset the population coming out of District 3 in Brinkerhoff. And then a small, we actually split this census block before District 2 came all the way up to Gillespie Street. So the homes on the west side of Gillespie were going into District 2. In this case, we've divided that. We're following essentially the city's neighborhood line there. So the streets that actually face Gillespie are in District 3. The homes that face Gillespie are in District 3. The ones up the hill from them.
And you're saying that's in 3A and 3B, and not in 3C? Or did we put them in?
Gillespie change is actually in all 3.
All 3, thank
Yeah.
you.
So not a lot of change, just small changes along the side in 3A versus the original draft 3. If we switch to 3B, we get the same changes we were just looking at with the Soledad and De La Guerra, with the Carpenter School, the Harding School in Gillespie, and Brinkerhoff. But then with one much larger change, which is instead of 6 coming up and getting Samarkand, 6 picks up Oak Park, and instead of getting the additional population here, it goes northwest, picks up Laguna, picks up the Bungalow Heaven area, almost all of it. Haven.
They think
sorry.
it's heaven, but it's Haven. Okay.
We were just talking about this. I was like, Bungalow District, Bungalow Heaven. In Pasadena, it's Heaven. Here it's Haven. Keep it straight. So I'll let them fight it out. So it's a shift. You can see it keeps, and we had a lot of comments that you heard about this, about the downtown nature of this area. And I should note the high school and the junior high in this case, in Plan 3B, go into District 6 as well. So they actually form the eastern border of District 6. Otherwise, 1 and 3 are the same as what we were just looking at. 4 is changed because now it's lost all this population from Laguna and that area. It keeps all of Upper East, so we're keeping the Upper East neighborhood together. And then it goes up and gets East San Roque and the Foothill area to offset the population. And 5 gave up that area, so it's picking up the Samarkand area. And then 3C, in this map, districts 1 and 3 are exactly as in the original draft 3, with some very tiny changes that the plaintiffs approved in writing. One is the Clark Estate, which is a 0 population change. The other is the Harding School, and then that Gillespie Street split block that I talked about. Those the plaintiffs actually asked for in writing. Other than that, they're exactly the same as drafts 3, districts 1 and 3. There are some changes within that, obviously. So the main changes were essentially like B with the Laguna and the Bungalow area coming into District 6, Samarkand shifting. But this one does not get the Brinkerhoff change because we're we're only making changes that the plaintiffs actually asked for in Districts 1 and 3 in this map. So this is very similar to B, except that it doesn't have the Brinkerhoff change in it and some of the other small changes that were made to offset that. In terms of population deviation, we're good. In draft A, it's 4.39. In B and C, it's 4.07. So we're talking tenths of a percent, essentially no difference among the three plans. And below 5, which the Plaintiffs' Counsel had said was a big concern for them. All three plans have the same Latino percentages in Districts 1 and 3, so all those small little notches and changes don't impact the Latino voting strength in either of those districts. They're all relatively compact, contiguous, they meet all the other requirements. And so that's my brief presentation. Happy to answer any questions. As the public makes comments, I can show the maps that they want, and obviously happy to work with you. The goal, obviously, is to adopt a map tonight. It could be one of these three. It could be some changes. We can make changes live if we want to go there. It does take some time and make things a little more complicated, but we can do that. So.
And then the Ealings Park issue can work either way with any of these maps, right?
Oh, yes, Madam Mayor, thank you for that. Yes, so in all three maps, the Ealings Park can shift. They all show it as being in District 2, but it can move to District 5 in all three plans. It's a zero population shift, so it wouldn't impact any of the numbers in any way.
Okay. All right, questions first, and then we have quite a bit of public comment. So, Ms. Murillo?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to confirm, Mr. Johnson, that the population variance in all three maps is below 5%. I think you just said that, but I was looking real hard for the numbers that you provided. Thank you so much for this. This is sort of showing your work, right, that you did. This is what you subtracted. This is what you added.
The third page in the packets that were posted online on Thursday is new. It's a breakdown of the population in each block that we split. And so there was a lot of discussion last time about the impact of moving a split block one way or another. So we decided to remove the controversy and just go into it in detail. And those did get sent to plaintiffs, and they reviewed them as well. So now you do have the numbers breaking down the population of each split block as assigned. I actually went through and counted rooftops and then recalculated the deviation for each plan after doing that. So, and all three did come out both below 5, and both are as small as we can get them without dividing more neighborhoods or going against other goals of the plan.
Right. There had been some talk about whether 10% was too much of a variance, and we agreed that 5 was acceptable, and they're all in the 4 range.
Yeah,
4 point something, so that's good.
Yeah, and the real standard we're looking at is, can you achieve your goals in some other way with a smaller deviation? And so in all three of these plans, we've gotten the deviation as small as we can within the goals of that plan.
Thank you.
Mr. Francisco?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This may be a question for the city attorney. So the Brinkerhoff change, that has not been agreed to with the plaintiffs as being potentially acceptable?
It has.
It has been.
Yeah, I'm not sure you were in the room at the time, Councilmember Francisco. All three of these maps in front of you tonight have been agreed to.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so we'll open up to public comment. We'll start with the Reverend Art Stevens, to be followed by Robert Burke. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and council members. My name is Art Stevens, and I live in the Oak Park area. The city of Santa Barbara, I believe, will be better served by a more diverse city council. I hope this switch to district-based elections results in more Latinos in the city council, and I'd like to see more women and young people elected to political office. I'd really like to see a lot more voter registration in the west side and the east side neighborhoods. We'd all benefit from a more engaged Latino electorate. But I'm really here right now just to make the point that I support map 3B or 3C, mainly because my neighborhood, where Judy and I rent, is in Oak Park, and it should be included with the downtown because it is quite diverse in a variety of ways. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Burke will be followed by Marcos Vargas.
Madam Mayor, members, the vote is the holy grail of democracy. The organizational chart for the city places the electorate, the people, as the head of the government. That makes me and all the other citizens of the city of Santa Barbara the boss. That makes you the hirelings. I am a first-class citizen in a first-class country, in a first-class city. Legitimate political authority is derived from the consent of its people. Having 3 people, a black-robed priest of the law and 2 acolyte lawyers, declare the policy with a population of 90,000 citizen sovereigns and with 43,494 registered voters of how they shall vote is unacceptable. I request, direct, and demand that you do your duty as representatives, as caretakers of the people, to honor the voice of the people by placing on the November 2016 ballot, when the largest number of citizen sovereigns vote, 2 proposals. 1, shall the election of the City Council be at large or by districts? 2, shall city elections be on even years? As you often take advice and give direction to staff, now is the time for the people to give direction to you. Today, we only have 3 people's opinions. To you, the ecclesiastics sitting at the altar of democracy, administering the doxology of democracy, I call on you to administer the sacrament of democracy by offering the chalice of freedom containing the elixir of the vote. The Constitution still starts out, we the people, not I the judge. Madam Mayor, members.
Marcos Vargas will be followed by Lucas Zucker.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Marcos Vargas. I'm the Executive Director of CAUSE. I'd like to first just commend and congratulate the mayor, the council, the city, in doing a fabulous job in putting together a very inclusive, engaging process for this important endeavor. I also like to thank all the folks from around the city who've added their voices to this process. As you know, the intent of the settlement was to focus on addressing the issue of the lack of Latino representation in our city. However, as you know, the impact is far broader than that. It's every member of every citizen in this city, and therefore it impacts their political voice. CAUSE has been very happy to be part of this, to come to the table, bring in our expertise in voting, in over 10 years of voting rights and in drawing up district maps, as well as on the ground every year engaging tens of thousands of voters. And from this experience, we've come to understand that fair representation involves more than district elections. It involves every effort to increase and strengthen voter participation. Therefore, while this is a very important step moving forward, I urge you to also place even year elections on the agenda as a means of significantly maximizing voter participation in our city. Today, with this kind of broader lens of a citywide participation, I'd like you to seriously and urge you to support MAP 3B. MAP 3B does more than any other to meet the full spirit of the settlement by creating 2 majority Latino districts while fully taking into account communities of interest throughout the city, keeping communities whole, including young people, low-wage working families, renters, as well as homeowners, seniors, and others. We believe MAP 3 does best to achieve that goal, and therefore again urge the mayor and the council to support the adoption of that map. Again, CAUSE would like to commend the city for an amazing job and for all those who participated in the process. We can all be very proud. Thank you very much.
Lucas Zucker will be followed by Stephen McIntosh.
Madam Mayor, council members, my name is Lucas Zucker, researcher for CAUSE. I'd like to commend the mayor and city council, demographer and staff, and the many community members who participate in this process. We have come a long way and are close to moving forward with district lines firmly rooted in communities of interest. CAUSE has worked on redistricting in Ventura and Santa Barbara counties for about a decade to protect the voice of underrepresented voters. Based on this experience, we support MAP 3B. 3B improves on the original MAP 3 by making 2 changes that more clearly follow logical communities of interest so all neighborhoods are better represented. First, Laguna fits better with Oak Park and downtown rather than District 4. Laguna is about 75% renters, over 40% Latino, and only 17% seniors. This very closely matches the demographics of District 6, but is starkly different from the demographics of District 4. Second, Samarkand fits much better with Hidden Valley to its west than Oak Park to its east. Hidden Valley and Samarkand are less than 20% Latino, while Oak Park is nearly 40% Latino. Hidden Valley and Samarkand are about half renters, half homeowners, while Oak Park is over 80% renters. Samarkand and Hidden Valley are nearly 30% seniors, while Oak Park has only 10%. Virtually no Samarkand or Hidden Valley residents commute by public transit, while 7% of Oak Park residents do. Map 3B does put San Roque into two districts. San Roque has a huge population with very high voter turnout, which is why it has historically elected many of Santa Barbara's council members and will continue to do so. Since this map puts San Roque in two districts that both share similar communities of interest to it, residents will continue to have a strong voice within both of those seats. In fact, it's not hard to imagine two council members from San Roque serving simultaneously in this map. Cause believes Map 3B is actually better than the original Santa Barbara community map that we supported initially. It meets the concerns raised by neighborhood groups such as Brinkerhoff, Bungalow, Haven, and Upper East. It better concentrates Latino families in Districts 1 and 3 and apartment renters in District 6, and more closely follows the city's general plan neighborhood boundaries. We urge the council to approve Map 3B. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen McIntosh? Oh, there you are. And then Mary O'Gorman.
Madam Mayor, Council, my name is Stephen McIntosh. I live in the San Roque neighborhood just above State Street at Kylerellis. I'm just wanting to first say fabulous job on this. I'm so pleased that the city is conducting such a transparent and inclusive process in redistricting the city or developing districts in the first place. And also hats off to your consultant, NDC. What a tremendous job they have done. And these guys are pros. It shows in everything that they've said and done and produced to you and to the community. Like the speaker before me, I think Map B is extremely well done and a good representation of what the city's voting districts should look like going forward. Thank you.
Mayor O'Gorman will be followed by Gregory Freeland.
Good afternoon. And first, I want to thank you all for this process. And, I was here at the first meeting at Faulkner, which I guess was only a month ago, but a lot has happened since then. And I'm, pleasantly surprised that both at the transparency and also what I think is a success of coming out of something that, as I've said before, I'm not that thrilled about, but I do believe, Map 3B actually brings together a lot of the concerns that have been expressed. I used to live on Brinkerhoff, and I certainly appreciate that, at least for the 4 years I lived there, I felt like I was downtown. I think that was important. And, while it doesn't meet all of my personal concerns, living on the Upper West Side, I'll no longer be a West Sider, I guess. But, I think that it's going to bring a lot of our smaller neighborhoods together. And so, again, I think there's probably not a neighborhood or a smaller group that doesn't get somewhat divided, in any of the plans. But it does, as some people have said, offer the opportunity for some dual representation, as I mentioned last time, along the Elings and the watershed of Arroyo Borough. I think it'll be great to have, two council members who can be a little more focused on that. So anyways, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Gregory Freeland will be followed by Mickey Flax.
Afternoon, City Council, and thank you, Doug, for all your work here. Yes, I'm up to also advocate for 3B, and all that's been said, I think, about the goodness of that particular map. The school catchments are certainly fine for me. So I'd like to speak about my neighborhood, and I like to see Ewens Park stay where it is. I like walking up there into the park. And feels like a community. It may be a psychological thing if I walk into a different district. I'm not sure how that will work out. But I also like to say, too, that the input for this map came from a very diverse group, black, brown, white, old, young, and so on, and we've have a broad cross-section of people who lived in this town forever, since the 1960s, perhaps, and also since that last redistricting was in place, as a matter of fact. So I would just like to see that happen, even though 3C is very close, but it does not have a Brinkerhoff, and I think Brinkerhoff really is part of downtown, so I really support that inclusion. Thank you.
Mickey Flax will be followed by Dick Flax.
I don't know why he always has to have the last word, but he's bigger than I am. I, too, support draft 3B. It has the best tweaks possible of the Santa Barbara Community Map number 2, which is what I had urged before, that map needed some tweaking, and that those tweaks are reflected in draft 3B. It has almost all of the other changes that were discussed at the last meeting. As far as San Roque is concerned, I lived in San Roque for about half the time I've been in this town, and it was clear that there was a distinction between the traditional areas of San Roque to the east of 1930s and 40s single-family homes, and where we lived, which is in the 60s development of the lemon groves that I understand used to be there. The houses were different. A lot of the folks who lived there were different. And the best part of the phenomenal work that has been done by the consultant, by the council, by the community, by everybody, the best part of it is a recognition of the community of interest and how much of a role that plays in true democracy. And 3B, I think, best represents all of the state required or the generally required rules, but also recognizes and honors the communities of interest in our larger community. And thank you for that.
Dick Flax will be followed by Tony Vasallo.
I was going to defer to my wife, but I can't really do that. Mayor and council, thanks. I got up simply to assert as co-chair of SBCAN that organization supports MAP 3B for all the reasons that were given, and to, again, reiterate compliments to council, consultant, plaintiffs. There is a movement in our community and maybe in other parts of the country toward fuller grassroots participatory democracy through the ballot box. And this is a historic day where we are charting, and I think in part because the maps are so excellently drawn to allow this, charting the possibility that communities of interest that have not been well represented are going to have more chance if they, of course, turn out to vote, which is another major question. In addition to these opportunities, they've got to make use of them. So thank you for the effort, and kumbaya.
Tony Vasallo will be followed by Hillary Blackerby.
Madam Mayor and council members, I just came to say thank you to the mayor and the council for all of the kind comments that were made last Tuesday evening regarding the Brinkerhoff district. And of course, I'm happy to see that the Brinkerhoff district is now in downtown on 2 out of the 3 maps. I think it's 3A and 3B. And so I just wanted to say thank you for those comments. And I also want to thank the plaintiffs for agreeing to the change of leaving Brinkerhoff in the downtown district. Thank you.
Hillary Blackerby will be followed by Eric Friedman, then Robert Johns, Maria Garcia, and then finally Gina Fisher.
Okay, Mayor and Council, good afternoon. Wanted to thank you for the process you've undertaken in this whirlwind of 31-ish days of looking at maps, and to congratulate the plaintiffs and the city attorney. And I want to be Mr. Johnson when I grow up, to be able to run meetings so effortlessly and draw a mean map. So congratulations. And, you know, I will sound like a broken record, but I'll say one more time. I think Oak Park, West Downtown, and Laguna should be together as reflected in Map 3B. I think 3B is the best, especially with Brinkerhoff. And it makes sense to me to have Samarkand with Hitchcock, Hidden Valley, the whole Adams School family. So look forward to hearing what you decide. And yeah, good luck.
Eric Friedman.
Good evening, or good afternoon, Mayor Schneider and council members. My name is Eric Friedman. I'm here representing myself today. I'm on vacation this week with my kids and have a lot of family in town, so it was tough to try to break away from about 7 kids under the age of 7 to come down to a city council meeting. But with that being said, it also kind of reinforced why I'm here and what do I have to say that could maybe add some value. I grew up in Santa Barbara. I've actually, some might not believe this, but I've lived here in the county, here and in North County and in South County since Jimmy Carter was president. And so I know the area pretty well. And so one of the things that I've come to realize with this process, because it's kind of creating it as we go along, is that not everyone's going to get everything they want. And I tell that to my kids a lot, and I say, when they want something, I say, well, what does Mick Jagger say? And I've trained them well, so they always sing back to me in their best Mick Jagger voice, that you can't always get what you want. But there's a second part to that, and it's, but if you try sometime, Brother Mick always says, you just might find that you get what you need. And Santa Barbara needs MAP 3B. And there's a lot of reasons that you've heard, but one I'm going to focus on is being a San Roque resident and a father with kids who go to Monte Vista, and having gone to Monte Vista myself up on the end of Hope there, is that we need to keep the schools in the neighborhoods. And MAP 3B does that. It keeps, East San Roque keeps Peabody. It also keeps Adams with San Marcan, and it keeps the Hope School District with West San Roque. So again, listen to wise Mick Jagger and support 3B. Thank you.
I'd like to hear your rendition of Mick Jagger. Dr. Robert Johns?
Yeah.
Good afternoon, council persons. I am not in favor of any of these maps. I think we've been Mickey flacked, and that's my term for racism and discrimination. None of these maps work and will not produce a Hispanic, Latino, Mexican American council person. Take it from me, I know what I'm talking about. And I'll be here after the election to say, I told you so. And, you know, seems to be a lot of happy people here, you know. But I'm here to say that I want to see Hispanic people. And I don't hear anybody in this room talking about that. See, you're just talking about, well, we're so happy we got this. And last week, you couldn't even say the word contiguous. You were talking divide, and to the old Roman thing, divide and conquer. You see? So I'm here to get Hispanics voted for, and all this other poppycock. That's what my old professor used to say, because he didn't want to say the other word. I learned that from him. All this other poppycock is poppycock. Thank you. Thank you.
Maria Garcia?
Good afternoon to everyone.
You bring the
present here.
mic down so we can, there you go. Thank you.
Mi nombre es María García.
My name is Maria Garcia.
Ya tengo yo 30 años aquí en Santa
I
Bárbara.
have been in Santa Barbara for 30 years now.
Tengo 4 hijos y 10 nietos.
I have 4 children and 10 grandchildren.
Y yo apoyo el mapa 3B y 3C.
I support MAP 3B and MAP 3C
Porque los dos incluyen la área de la laguna,
because they both include the Laguna area,
que son el 75% y 40% de latinos
which includes 75% and 40% Latinos
en el distrito.
In
En
that
el distrito 6
in District 6
del estado.
of the state.
Porque se va a ver mucho, muy mejor, muy más mejor la representación
The representation will be
de la
seen,
gente latina,
it will be better seen upon of all the Latin people there.
que somos latinos trabajadores,
We are hardworking Latinos,
como yo,
like myself.
y disculpen que no sé mucho inglés,
And I apologize that I do not much English,
pero yo siempre me la pasé trabajando 2 trabajos,
but I've
siempre,
always had to work 2 jobs all the time
porque yo saqué mis 4 hijos solita
because
adelante.
I have been able to put forward my 4 children all by myself.
Y ahora voy a la escuela, pero no me entra ya el inglés.
And now I'm going to school, but English doesn't seem to come into my head.
Okay, gracias.
Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Gina Fisher.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having a wonderful process. And I am here as a very fortunate young homeowner in the Oak Park neighborhood and also as a geography major. And so I am here to advocate on behalf of MAP 3B. I think it best achieves the spirit of the settlement. And I think it's the fairest deal for both the Oak Park and San Marcan neighborhoods. So thank you very much.
Okay, that concludes the public comment. I'll close the public hearing. And it's to the council. Excuse me. I think perhaps we should take care of the Ealings Park issue first and just get that out of the way, perhaps. And sorry about that. Just a thought, but we can just start with having a dialogue. Ms. Murillo?
Madam Mayor, Dan McCarter, who was so engaged in this process, he lives on Allen Road, and he was the one who had originally advocated for sensibility of watershed planning. He wrote us an email today just to let you all know that he supports MAP 3B, and he is fine with Ealings Park being in the Mesa district number 2. So,
good to know.
Does that need a motion, or we're just thinking about things?
I think before we get to a motion, why don't we at least hear from us first before we devise a motion. So, but that's good information to have. So I'm hearing that you are interested in keeping Ealings Park in District 2.
I understood and really applauded Mr. McCarter's position, but he's persuaded, like other people, that that Ealings Park can be in District 2, and I agree with that.
Okay.
I had another bit of information to add for us, having been a liaison to the Neighborhood Advisory Council, that consolidated advisory group of ours looks at the east side, the west side, the downtown, and the Laguna neighborhood. So that would be another reason to support 3B or 3C, if I have that right. That includes Laguna in the downtown instead of Laguna captured and taken up into the Riviera District 4, because we already have an advisory body that is charged with a certain census maps in their charge. So that would be, I would mention that as a reason to support 3B or 3C. And it would provide continuity of governance. Mr. Opplinger didn't speak, but he did say he was glad that many council members in this configuration would be responsible for the downtown district. And I had been hoping Mr. Williams was going to be here. He really didn't seem to understand that having just one person looking at the downtown, it's better to have more people responsible for the downtown, and it is a district that we all need to look out for and not get focused on, oh, I only care about the Mesa, I don't care about the downtown. So this map certainly does that. And I am, my sister lives in the San Roque area, and I think there are distinct neighborhoods in the San Roque. I think Ms. O'Gorman said something about, well, then you would have 2 council members who are looking out for the San Roque area if there's a line drawn there, as we can see. Is this map 3B?
Yes.
Yeah. That there would be 2 council members, District 5 and District 4, who would be looking out, for that neighborhood. And I'm already, as someone who's running this year from the west side, I'm already starting to feel, oh, if I'm going to work on that Ealings issue, I need to, talk to the Mesa person. I'm having a sensibility that I care about the whole city, but I am going to be responsible for the west side if I win. Thank you. And so I see the lines as transitional, right? So if I'm working on something related to District 6, I would work with the District 6 person. So it's already changing my mind about the cooperation that we need to have with each other as we go into district representation and governance. So I'm okay with 3B, that the San Roque is going to be watched over by two different district representatives. And then also I know that the Upper East folks had wanted their Upper East neighborhood to capture below State Street, but this that we're looking at, 3B, it reflects our general plan mapping, and I think that's a reflection of the zoning. The zoning is a little bit different. The Upper East has larger lots. So someone said not everyone's going to be happy, especially a lot of my friends on the west side. They're a little too close to the mesa, and they're captured in District 2. And Ms. O'Gorman, you're always a west sider to me. I just want you to know that. And that's what I'm saying about I'm going to care about every district. So that's it for now, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Francisco.
Madam Mayor, first I'll direct my comments to your question. Ewings Park is just fine in the Mesa as far as I'm concerned. I don't think watershed issues and district elections have anything to do with each other, personally. If I can make the rest of my comments now, here's what I'll say. We're here doing this not because this is something that the people of Santa Barbara asked for. This is something that we're doing because we are forced to by Sacramento, by the California Voting Rights Act, so named, and we're doing it because I'm an attorney, and we're doing it because we want to save the people of Santa Barbara some money when we have an opportunity to do so. So from my point of view, this action in itself has nothing to do with democracy, and in fact, a lot of the proponents of these ideas are talking about dividing our city. The district map is just a symbol of that, dividing us by race, dividing us by ethnicity, dividing us by income, or even whether we ride a bus or not. Having lived in Santa Barbara for 30 years, I really do believe that we are one city. And so from my point of view, what district map we choose almost doesn't matter, because the reality is when it comes to voting for city council, I hope the best people will win, whoever they are, whatever race, whatever ethnicity, whether they ride buses or not. I hope that we will always elect people who care about Santa Barbara, who care about the entire city, and it's more or less an accident what neighborhood they happen to come from. So from my point of view, we could choose any one of these maps. I will state a preference for either 3A or 3B. I understand the desire of the Brinkerhoff people to be where they are, and that's fine. But again, ultimately, I don't think that this will make a difference. It will make a difference, I suppose, to the voters who will only get to vote for one person every 2 years instead of 3 people or 4 people every 2 years, and that may not be so wonderful. And it'll certainly make it easier for candidates to run, and maybe we'll get some even more interesting candidates than we've had in the past. But again, my hope is that what comes out of this is a recognition that the people of Santa Barbara really are united in wanting to make this a great city. And no city council, however elected from districts, at large, whatever, will ever accomplish anything unless they work together. Thank you.
I don't see any other lights on. Mr. Hotchkiss?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I agree with Mr. Francisco's comments. I think this whole thing has been divisive, unfortunately, and not uniting. But it's water over the dam. We have to make the best of the worst here. If you look at map 3A, if we could put that up, this is, in a sense, the simplest map to follow because it's entirely by neighborhoods. The most obvious difference of this and the other two maps is that it keeps San Roque together. Now, as a realtor, I know, and I think as you all probably recognize, people don't say, "Oh, I'm from East San Roque" or "I'm from West San Roque." I say, "I'm from San Roque," or I say, "I'm from Bel Air or Hidden Valley or Upper Riviera or Lower Riviera, Milpas, East Side, West Side." All of those neighborhoods are kept together with this map, and 5 of them have an influence on downtown State Street. So because of that, and it does put the bungalow district both touching State Street as well as being up in the hills, and I think bungalow folks have interest in both directions. In the case of Samarkand, normally I would say Samarkand would be better linked with San Roque, but because of the numbers involved, we can't do that. So if we split Samarkand off, still it votes as a body for whatever district candidate wishes. And it is also, interestingly, school-wise different than San Roque. San Roque is generally Peabody, Monte Vista. Samarkand is Adams. So that would follow those lines. Moving Brinkerhoff to District 6 without upsetting the apple cart, if it's kept north of Haley, that works fine. In other words, as we have on this map 3A. So, what's over the horizon, none of us knows, and how this will work out, we can't tell. But it does seem to me that 3A does a better job of keeping neighborhoods of interest together. Thank you.
Mr. White?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with my colleagues about Elings Park being in the Mesa, and I think that the comments that have been made today are fitting. They've taken the information that started with a scramble a month ago, 6 weeks ago, whenever, and we've obviously focused it down to some very small pieces that we're moving around here. And I feel as if the Samarkand San Roque question is the one there that I think Mr. Hotchkiss raised, that I think I fall on the 3B alternative as preferable. Again, there are no ideal ones here, and I certainly appreciate the comments that have made about how we really need to stay away from protecting our neighborhood and stay with protecting our city. That's the downside of what we're talking about during this whole process, and I hope that we can avoid that today, this year, and in the long term. I do have one tweak that makes sense to me, but I want to put it out there for my colleagues, and that is we do have the Entrada project split by all of these. And it makes sense to me that single project be in a single district. So that would be a 2-block adjustment with 0 population change, as I understand it, and it sounds reasonable to me to make that adjustment. So with that, then I would be supporting B and put that out there for others to see whether it warrants the effort to be tinkering with the maps with yet one more detail. Thank you.
Mr. Rouse and then Mr. Hart.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I've lived in my house on the Mesa for 30 years, and I've had my business downtown for 32 and a half years, and I certainly hope that whoever gets elected still looks at the city as a whole, still looks at all the neighborhoods as important, and we don't get provincial about our little districts, our little problems. We're certainly not practically going to divide the capital budget up in 6 pieces, and we're certainly not going to divide everything else up by 6, I would hope. I don't know how this is going to work. That being said, I don't see the significance of moving Elings either way, so I'm fine with the pleasure of the council. Dividing San Roque is, I don't know what the real effect is. I do think that it may not play out politically the way the people who designed the system in the first place may want it to go, but that's the way these things are. I certainly remember the nightmares of statistics and demography classes at UCSB, so and this is really making me uncomfortable even today after all those years. But I think, it is what it is. I think it is unfortunate that we do not get to vote at large and get to vote for all of our representatives. I think that's not really not a great thing, but it is what it is. We're stuck with it now, unfortunately by judicial fiat as opposed to by a vote of the people. So I'm fine with any of the maps, frankly. I don't see a reason to play with the lines anymore.
Well, I agree with my colleagues that are supporting Map 3B. Clearly, that's the favorite of the community as expressed tonight, and I think it does maintain the best balance in the communities of interest. I think one of the speakers spoke about the need to transition the city to even year elections, and I think that is really critical. If you look at the numbers involved in the differential turnout in these different districts, there's going to be a tremendous disparity in the total number of votes that council members get to get elected, and that's something we need to rectify as soon as possible. I hope that's going to be something that's going to be on the agenda soon to make that change as fast as we possibly can. And then just in terms of a detail, I think that Councilmember White brings up a good point about the Entrada project being separated by State Street, and I think that would probably be an appropriate tweak to make to put them all in the same district, put that property in the same district.
Thank you. Well, I really need to commend staff, particularly Mr. Kalan and Ms. Schmidt, for this process and hiring and finding Mr. Johnston. I'm just so impressed by what you were able to do in such a short period of time. And so thank you for that. And I know it was tricky because we were not dealing with a blank slate. We had a settlement that we had to abide by as well. And that makes it difficult, which also made it, I know, a little more tricky for the public. And I really want to thank the public for being engaged. I'm not surprised, actually. This is what Santa Barbara's all about, is that civic engagement. And so, but I'm glad to see that it actually happened, right? I think based on, because of the community consensus that seems to be around 3B, that seems to be the one that makes the most sense for a lot of reasons already said. And I think we try to tweak here and there to really do everything we can, and I think that should answer the questions as much as we think it should. We'll know in a few years, after a few cycles of elections, what this will really mean. I'll just want to end my comments by saying this morning I was on a radio show with Ed Geron, and many of you may know he's an actor and theater person and relatively good guy. But what was interesting for today, if you may remember, when former Mayor Miller had a radio show, she was the co-host to Ed Geron. So we were talking about Harriet Miller, and I mentioned this story about when I first ran for council back in 2003, and I had little house parties, and that's what you do, and you meet with folks. And Mayor Miller came to the very first one I did, and someone asked me the question of what makes Santa Barbara, a relatively small city, unique, or makes it Santa Barbara. And being a very young candidate in that sense, young in age and experience, I guess, I was saying, well, it has this and it's beautiful. But, Harriet, as Mayor Miller, as you know, she had her answer. And she said, well, we are a full service city. We have an airport, we have a harbor, we have a water department, a wastewater department. We are the county seat. We have millions of people come here every year. Tourism is a big draw. We are renowned as a community. People know about Santa Barbara for a city our size. That is, part of what make us so unique in terms of who we are as a community, as a city itself and the civic engagement, but how it reflects who we are as an American city and how important that is. And so I was thinking about that today, and I was thinking about that in relation to this today. And I hope that what comes out of this, even though it came through litigation and a settlement, that moving forward we can have a council that will be representing, yes, their district, but remembering that we're a world-class city with big regional issues that has to work with the county, with other cities in the county, with areas throughout the state, issues related to the harbor or the airport or water or traffic or whatever it is that doesn't stop not only at our city borders, but, and certainly not within the district borders. And as some of my colleagues said, it'll take 4 or maybe even 5 votes to get major pieces of policy accomplished and a budget passed. That is going to take collaboration amongst us. And I think actually this particular council, as diverse as our political leanings may be, actually does a pretty good job of focusing on areas throughout the city that are in need. We may disagree, but we can do it without being disagreeable. And I just hope that future iterations of what councils will be. And term limits being a part of that. We will all not be here in the relatively near future, but district elections will. And that is the hope I have of thinking districtly, acting citywide. I don't know. We're thinking globally, acting locally. Whatever phrase you want to use, but having that focus of where you are, but how that then connects to the city as a whole, and how the city as a whole connects to who we are as a community. So that. I think, and a main part because of how this community came together in focusing on the maps in the tradition that, with the restrictions that we had, 3B to me seems to make the most sense in giving that back to the community because they were so involved in advocating for this for various reasons. So that's my rationale. I guess I have a question to Mr. Kalan about the other tweak that's been mentioned. If that is risky, not risky, is it? And I don't know if that was probably sprung up amongst the plaintiffs here, but just thought I'd ask the question first before stating an opinion on it.
I don't know the plaintiff's position on it. I think to the extent that we're talking about the unpopulated area to the east of State Street, it may not be a problem. I don't know. Perhaps we could get a picture of it and then ask Ms. Welcome whether or not it's a concern. I think that the further east that you push into District 1, the more problematic it becomes.
Okay. So,
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Ms. Murillo.
May I ask Mr. Casey and put him on the spot? For those of you who don't know, he was our planning director for many years, and you oversee the Entrada, construction issues, and Councilmember White makes a good point. What would be the pros and cons of having 2 council members with a piece of La Entrada, or what should it be one person?
Madam Mayor, council members, yeah, exactly. I'm not sure it really has that much of a practical effect either way. It's going to be built in the next 18 months, and whether it's represented by 1 council member or 2 council members, that's up to council to decide. I'm not concerned either way, and I'm not sure at the end of the day it'll have that much of a practical impact.
Well, I would move 3B as it is. With all due respect, Councilmember White, I think we've come this far, and again, to me it feels good to have more than 1 council member responsible for such a resource as La Entrada and others.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Okay. Do we want anything to the motion? So we're looking at 3B. Mr. White?
Mr. Cullen did suggest that we check with the plaintiffs and make sure that this had at least a clear option as the change of the Entrada project. So.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember White, I did get a chance to confer with Ms. Welcome. They're not in a position to agree to the extension of District 2 into District 1 to encompass Entrada, and you should be aware of that.
Okay. Mr. Hotchkiss?
Madam Mayor, I would like to say that I still think it would be a good idea to keep San Roque together, but if this is a vote that we could do unanimously, unity and working together is absolutely vital, and I don't want to set an example in any other direction, so I would join the council if everybody votes for 3B.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. I think had we had some time on Entrada, that would be one thing. I'm not sure if the last thing I'd want is for a 1-block area to create a challenge with a map. So I get but I think I agree with Mr. Casey on this. I'm not really quite sure what the difference is going to be. So, and yeah, so I'll just leave it at that. Mr. Rouse?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, just one comment on that is that as drawn in 3B, District 1 will have a lot of the major waterfront properties, and they'll be contiguous, whereas this is the one that will be divided in half. So that may be a consideration.
Okay.
I don't know what like Mr. Casey said, I don't know what the practical implications are of having two instead of one council member. Certainly, Lawton Trotta's not going to vote, so.
Right.
But they did express some concern, so.
Okay, well, okay. Okay, I think we have a motion on the table. Yes, we're good. We're looking at 3B with Ealings Park in District 2. So basically, as it's shown there. Mr. Francisco.
Madam Mayor, I just wanted to say that I think 3A or 3B will work, either one of them. I prefer 3A, so if we're voting in favor of 3B, I'll vote against it, but I think either one of them will work.
Okay. All right, so that puts, I know, we have Mr. Hotchkiss saying, get a 7-0 vote.
Just wanted to be clear about
behind
that.
This. I know. Well, I'm going to try to urge to see if we can get a 7-0 vote, but I can only do what I can do. Why don't we do a roll call then?
Councilmember Francisco?
No.
Hart? Yes. Hotchkiss? Yes. Murillo?
Yes.
Rouse? White?
Aye.
Mayor Schneider?
Aye. Passes 6-1. Okay. Okay. So thank you very much. That did not take as long as I thought. So with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.